everyone, it's Michael and me, all by myself. Welcome to the slightly unusual Friday live stream. Friday still being sponsored by Bullion Now. So hopefully, actually, if you could give me a thumbs up or something to let me know that the sound and the picture and everything are coming through, that would be appreciated greatly, because to say I'm slightly out of my depth would be a massive understatement. So, what a week we've had. We probably should kick off with how we're going to run today's live stream. Good. Looks like lots of people are hearing me. So, Ruben's 2 pages of instructions obviously worked. He broke it down for the idiot amongst us, which was very good. So today is going to be less like a normal live stream because it's just me. For those that are just tuning in and weren't aware from the conversation we had last week, both Ruben and Matt have abandoned me. Matt's up in Sydney at the ANDA conference. So if you happen to be in Sydney on the weekend and you'd like to go to the ANDA show, which is the Australasian Numismatic Dealers Association, they have a coin show over this weekend in Sydney at the Lower Town Hall. If you'd like to go to that, get along, say hello to Matt, and have a wander around and see what sort of bargains you can find and people you can chat to. It's always good for a laugh. So Matt's up there. Matt's the chief guru that runs it. So we've allowed him out of the office for a day to go up there, which has been good. Ruben's up there partying, I believe. He happens to be in Sydney as well, coincidentally, and he's up there for a good time by the sounds of it. So don't know if he's going to the ANDA conference as well, but he's catching up with mates and doing all sorts of things up there. So today we are going to run much more like the traditional Michael's Mailbox that we used to do, where we used to run that live, and I probably haven't done a live one for near on 12 months, where basically it gave you full access to a bullion dealer, and it was just back and forth between you and I, and you'd ask whatever questions you wanted on there, and I would answer as many as I possibly could, and we tried to attack the more stickier questions, the questions that you're kind of not sure who to ask or how to ask. You might not want to put your face to a question, sort of thing. Might be slightly a bit out of the ordinary. That's fine. Throw them up there. Bear in mind, there's quite a number of people that are going to join us today, so in the chat. So I may not get to your question, but I'll get to as many as I can. Obviously, the big one that everyone's been kicking off with this morning, or this afternoon, I should say, is the spot price. So in Australian dollar terms, we are hitting all-time highs. So the all-time high for today, according to my screen, has been 31.36 an ounce Australian dollars. So quite high, and everyone's saying, what's causing it? How is that playing out in the shop and on the phones and on the web, things like that. So start off with the cause of it. Look, you never really honestly truly know what's caused it. You can be fairly suspicious as to what's caused it, but you never honestly truly know. So obviously, one of the main things has been the trouble in the Middle East at the moment between Israel and the Gaza Strip. Obviously, we're all waiting with bated breath as to what's going to happen over there, if it's going to expand at all to other areas. Obviously, Iran's stamping their feet, and a few other of the nations around there certainly applying pressure to Israel and telling them to... I'm trying not to get political in this. They're applying pressure to Israel, and obviously there's a real concern that if the conflict stays... I'm sounding very callous here, and I'm not meaning it that way. If the conflict stays between Hamas and Israel, we will see less impact on the gold price. Obviously, if it spreads out to be more of even a regional conflict, never mind if it actually spreads even further than the region. But if it becomes a regional conflict, obviously we're going to see quite a lot of pressure on the gold price overall. However, having said all of that, I don't believe the last 24 hours or so shenanigans has been so much about the conflict over there, because we haven't seen major movements in the price of gold in US dollar terms. Remembering that gold is very much along the lines of most commodities. It's priced in US dollars. So we see the initial reaction in US dollar terms, and then we see the flow-on effect in local currency terms, in our case, Australian dollars. So last night we saw a little bit of movement in US dollar, but the main movement was, like in gold prices in US dollar, the main movement was actually in gold price in Australian dollar terms. So that showed a weakening of the Australian dollar or a strengthening of the US dollar, depends on how you want to look at it. Now, we can guesstimate that a lot of that movement is actually due to inflationary pressures in the US and the fact that a lot of the US traders now are starting to say, well, we think there's a fair chance that come November, the Fed Reserve is going to increase interest rates in the US. Now, if we don't see a corresponding interest rate increase in Australia, we're going to see more money come out of Australia and go into the US. So that means strengthening US dollar, weakening Australian dollar. So that in itself means that you can buy less of anything in US dollar terms with Australian dollar money, and that therefore drives the price up. For example, and these numbers make absolutely no sense, but they're very easy to work out. Let's say that gold is currently $3,000 an ounce, and the Australian dollar and the US dollar are parity, meaning that $1 US buys $1 Australian dollar, $1 Australian dollar buys $1 US. So it means that if the US price of gold is $3,000, the Australian price of gold would also be $3,000 in Australian dollars. Now, for some strange reason, the Australian dollar halves in price. So $1 US, one Australian, I'm trying to explain this easily, $1 Australian dollar would equal 50 US cents, or $1 US would equal 2 Australian dollars. So it's now you now get twice as many Australian dollars for a US dollar. That means that instead of, even though gold is still at 3,000 US dollars, it means that it's going to take 6,000 Australian dollars to buy that 1 ounce of gold still. So even though there's been no movement in the price of gold in US dollar terms, it's doubled in price in Australian dollar terms. And that's what's occurring at the moment. The Australian dollar is worth less and less, so it takes twice as much Australian dollars to buy what it used to buy in Australian dollar terms, in US dollar terms. So it increases the price of gold in Australian dollar terms. And that's currently what we're facing at the moment. As far as how that plays out in the shop and in the wider market, we've seen, especially today, but all this week, has been buyback week. We are getting, particularly in gold, we are getting buybacks hand over fist, which is a great thing. That's the reason you buy gold, is you don't eat it, you don't wear it, you don't shelter under it. Eventually you buy it to sell it. So we're seeing some people liquidate their gold. They obviously think that it's at a price that they're happy to sell. And you've got to remember, some people are selling not so much because of the price of gold, although they're taking advantage of it, but they may have something else that they are looking at buying at that time. So we've certainly had somebody come in and exchange gold because they wanted to use the money for a deposit on a house. We've had other people come in because they've needed the money for their business, or just the fact that they wish to liquidate some gold. I wouldn't say we're seeing a slowdown in sales. We're certainly seeing a lot of people buying, but we are seeing far more people selling than normal at the moment, which we started off with the staff meeting at the start of the week. One of the first things we said was, this week's going to be buyback week. We're going to see a lot of people selling back because it's broken back through that psychological $3,000 Australian mark. I actually believe we will start to see that volume of buybacks slow down, because now people will start to become a little bit, hang on a sec, it's broken through 3,100. Might hold off a bit to see if it's going to charge even higher or if it's going to ease back a little bit. So I think we're going to see that a slowdown in sellbacks for a little while until we get an idea of what's actually going to happen in Australian dollar terms. And then buying-wise, I think we'll probably start to see people ease back a little bit as well, because, again, people will start to say, well, I'll commit half my money, which I think is a wise thing to do. I'll commit half my money now because I'm not sure if it jumps up higher, then at least I've secured a chunk. But if it comes down lower, I've still got some dry powder that I can jump again. So I think we're going to see quite a bit of that over the next week. or two. But again, this really is dependent on what happens both in the US particularly, but also in Israel-Gaza Strip region, because if Israel do cross the border properly in numbers and actually start rolling tanks into the Gaza Strip, I think we're going to see at that point another upswing in the price of gold. Because don't forget, as humans, for good reason, when we panic, we run to gold. We don't run to anything else, we run to gold. All right, that's a long answer to a very short question, I believe, but a few people were bringing it up. I've probably missed a lot of people's questions in all of that. So Paul Ratchman there, is it correct as a buyer I want gold to go down, the Australian dollar to go up, and as a seller I want gold to go up and the Australian dollar to go down? That's effectively correct, yes. Can you please explain how and why? I think we've done that one. Do you think we may see bank bail-ins? This one's a sticky one. I never know how to answer this one. We've certainly seen bail-ins overseas. We've never seen them in Australia. That doesn't mean that they're not considering them. I think the advantage we have in Australia is that our banks are so strong, and that we don't have, like in the US, we have a lot of these, long fixed rate periods for people's mortgages. So the banks have, from the bank's perspective, they have far less security because they've loaned out this money at 1%, 2%, 3%, and now they're having to re-borrow it back through the system at 4%, 5%. So that's what gets them in trouble over there. They also have the fact that they've locked in a lot of their money into the bond market, and they've locked in bonds at, US government bonds, which they're actually required to do. They've locked them in at this 1%, 2% sort of range, and now interest rates have gone up. It actually decreases the value of the bonds that they've got on their books. Therefore, they no longer have the asset backing that they had before, and if they have to liquidate, they're only able to liquidate those bonds at 90% or even less of the value of the face value that they had on them, because they have to liquidate them now, not 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time like they're meant to. So all of a sudden they are caught short and they have to liquidate more and more, which actually is this downward spiral in their assets, and eventually that sends them broke. We don't tend to have the same issues in the Australian banking. We still have other issues though, so you can never say that it would never happen here, but we have a more robust system in Australia than they do in the US, so it is less likely to happen here. I hope that answers your question. So if you, Dean Parkinson, I sell opals in US dollars, so working well for me. Absolutely, if you've got a commodity that you can sell in US dollar terms, you are actually raking it in at the moment. I know, I've made no qualms about saying this. I live in a farming area. There's a lot of farmers that are rubbing their hands together saying, well, this is great because we sell, in US dollar terms effectively. So it makes their prices better, even though a lot of the wool and beef prices are down at the moment. It's cushioned a little bit because of the weaker Australian dollar. The downside of it is fuel goes up, and we're all kind of hurting on that one. What are your thoughts on BRICS and the currency potentially being backed by gold? We've talked about this one a few times, Soak. Any advertising is good advertising. So if the BRICS do back their currencies with gold formally, then it will certainly create more interest, which will drive the price of gold up. I think in the long term, though, a lot of the BRICS countries have already pseudo-backed their currency with gold. A lot of them are emptying their reserves of US dollar and they're refilling their reserves with gold. And we've seen, it only takes 5 minutes Google search and you see how much central banks have been buying gold and storing it over the last few years. So I think there is already that shadow backing of their currencies already there. So I think from a demand perspective, we might see an uptick, but I don't think we'll see a huge long-term uptick. But I think, as I said, any advertising is good advertising. So I think we'll naturally see that uptick there. Good time to exchange unallocated gold for silver. Actually, I haven't seen the gold-silver ratio recently. Yeah, 86 to 1 is quite a good time to start looking at that. I have to claim my history here where I swore black and blue during COVID that it would never breach 100 to 1, and it charged straight through 101 and went to about 100, I think it was about 128, 129 to 1 at some point. So 80 above 80 is always a good time to consider. This is not financial advice. Above 80 to 1 is always a good time to consider converting your gold into silver. But, that's not to say that it won't run further. For those that don't know what we're talking about with the ratio, so the gold-silver ratio is how much silver can I buy for the equivalent of 1 ounce of gold. So at the moment, 1 ounce of gold would buy you 86 ounces of silver. And as gold charges more and more on and silver doesn't follow, that spread will get bigger and bigger. Once it tends to drop below that 60 to 1, people start to favour gold a bit more than silver because, for example, let's use fictitious numbers. Let's say 1 ounce of gold buys 100 ounces of silver. If I take my ounce of gold and convert it, so I've started off with 1 ounce of gold, I convert that into 100 ounces of silver. So I'm now holding 100 ounces of silver. The ratio now changes back to 50 to 1. I've got 100 ounces of gold. I can actually take for every 50 ounces I've got, I can convert that into 1 ounce of gold. So I can actually take my 100 ounces and convert it into 2 ounces of gold. So I've now effectively traded 1 ounce for 100 ounces of silver and then back into 2 ounces. So I've doubled the amount of gold I've got without actually outlaying any cash. So that's the attraction of doing it. And people do it with stocks and real estate and all sorts of things. You'll be surprised what people do this ratio. And they don't always have to be directly correlated like gold and silver are. So as I said before, this isn't financial advice, but you'll find people tend to favour silver once it goes over that 80 ratio, 80 to 1, and then they start favouring gold again once it goes back below that 60 to 1. Alrighty, what have I missed out on? Where's my, do I have unallocated? Right, so Objective Sovereignty is asking for his unallocated balance. Unfortunately, at this stage, the way the website is designed, you can't just see your unallocated balance because part of the security for our website is that it feeds information from the website to our back-end system, our accounting system, but it doesn't allow the accounting system to feed data back through to the website. It stops it there. I'm massively generalising here, but that's effectively what happens. So the way to get your unallocated balance is to actually just send us an email and we can flick one straight back to you relatively quickly with your balance on there. So that's just send an email, sales@bullionnow.com.au, and the guys will generate you an unallocated balance email and they'll flick it straight back to you. So it should happen fairly quickly. Is it possible to increase your volume, please? Yeah. I'm not game enough to give that one a crack. So I don't know. If people are complaining about volume across the board, I'll have a crack at it. Otherwise, not at this stage. Mr. Variable. I recently sold back to the store and it made me realise how much I overlooked the fantastic ability to exchange bullion back for currency. It's too easy to overlook bullion's other benefits. Absolutely. One of the more frequent questions we get is, what happens when I want to sell it? You know, I've just bought this ounce or kilo or whatever of gold. What happens when I want to convert it? You know, how hard is it? It's really, really simple. If you've got physical, honestly, you can actually give us a ring, 1300 84 84 10. You can lock in a price at that time. So long as you get the gold to us within a day or so, we're quite happy to honour that price. If you've got the physical stuff and you want to bring it in store, you just roll in, you hand it over the counter. We can hand you cash on the spot, or we can do a bank transfer. The bank transfer can be anywhere between immediate, although we do all our bank transfers at 3 p.m, I have to admit. So it won't be actually transferred till that 3 o'clock time. But effectively, it can either happen at 3 o'clock or it can actually take 24 hours to roll over. It depends on how quickly the banks shake hands. And quite often, if it's our first transfer to you, it does actually take the full 24 hours. But you will absolutely have your money, even by bank transfer, within that 24-hour period. There are two banks actually that it takes 24 hours to get to. They're two of the smaller banks that are a little bit more awkward to deal with, so it can actually take up to 48 hours. But 98% of the time, you've got your money, worst case scenario, within 24 hours. And again, if you want cash, straight over the counter. It's a piece of cake. Very, very, very simple. I'm getting lots of volumes good, so I'm not going to play around with anything, just because if I touch anything, it'll probably shut the whole stream down. Michael, some of the business cards. No, I love this one. Peter graced me guide. Michael, please post me out some more business cards. I gave out my last one yesterday when I bought 10 U's and 4 lambs. I love where our business cards end up. Absolutely, we'll try and get some out to you, mate. What else have I missed? Yeah, STI Custom. Try being in the coal industry. For every 1 cent the Australian dollar drops against the US dollar, they make an extra $100 million in profit. I wish. Hello from Texas. G'day, mate. Options for insuring your stack. Any specialised insurers in Australia? Look, insuring stacks at home are really, really difficult. And if anyone that's watching here in the chat can actually suggest someone, I'm quite happy for you to do it. We do insure, like everything through us is insured, but we go through a specific business broker to actually get that, and it's massively expensive. I know a little while ago, I tried to get some insured for my mother at her place through her house insurance, and it was they were actually quite willing to do it to their credit, but it was massively expensive to insure it through just standard retail house insurance. So yeah, not easy. Not easy at all. Where else? What else have we got here? At what dollar amount do you ask for customer ID? I know for me the most I've spent is $350. I've never been asked. We don't normally talk about this as a rule because we get frowned upon when we do. But look, it's published in federal government law, so we're not doing anything wrong. At 5,000, we are strongly encouraged to take ID. And in fact, some would argue we have to take ID. We don't do anything with it at that point. At $10,000, we are, and this is in a cash transaction only, in a cash transaction, we are actually legally required under KYC regulation to take your ID and to submit that to the governing body, which in this case is Austrac. Now we're only required to do the cash ones, but you can bet your buns that the bank does it if you're going over 10 grand anyway. So any transaction over 10 grand in Australia will be registered by either someone like ourselves or by the banks themselves. What else have we got here? I'm sorry if I'm skipping over. If I've missed your question and it's a burning question, please just repeat it again and I'll try and get to it. Traded bullion for sheep and hay. Actually, I did a similar thing very recently for hay. And I paid a Sparky, I think it was, very recently with gold. So, they are out there. You just got to ask the question. If I were to trade unallocated gold for unallocated silver, is it the same price as selling back unallocated? Pretty much, yes. Can you explain more about the storage fee? This is from Warren Buffett. How is it calculated? So we do, I don't want anyone to misread this, 3 months free storage for everyone. We do that religiously. So it's designed for, to build up stuff so you don't have to pay $17.50 for every order. You can actually build up a number of orders and then get them all shipped out all together. Or if you don't want to make, a trip into town every week because you're buying weekly or every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, or even every month, you can actually place orders every so often and then come in, pick them all up in one hit. So this was really designed around COVID back during lockdown where people were stressed that, I can't come in and pick up my order. No worries, place your order. We'll store it here until lockdown has finished. And in Victoria, that was well longer than 3 months, as it turned out. But we kind of advertised that 3 months free storage, and we're absolutely sticking to that. So please don't take away from this that we're going to do anything else. We are absolutely standing by our 3 months free storage from now on. Once you've had an item in storage for 3 months, or longer than 3 months, at that point, at about the 2-month mark, you'll get an email to say, hey, you've got something coming up that's about to roll over into greater than 3 months. We are now going to charge you 6.6, correction, let me walk that back a little bit. We're going to charge 0.66% of its market value, so it's spot value, in storage fees per annum. That's not per month, that's per annum. And that covers, obviously, the secure storage and all the stuff that involves, like, it's monitored and all the good stuff that occurs. But the main expense in that, at least 90% of your 0.66%, it goes straight to the insurance company to insure all the stuff that's in storage, including your component. And that was the fairest way that we could work out how to do it. So it's calculated at its spot price. So if you've got an ounce of gold, it'll be just over $3,000. At that point, we do 0.66%. The reason it's 0.66 is because it includes the GST component. That is revalued at June 30th every year. So you'll get a pro rata invoice from that month through to June 30th, because we're getting everyone into that cycle, and then you'll pay 12 months for the following financial year once we get towards June 30th. Something that I need to make very, very clear is that if you pay for 12 months of storage, and then after 6 months you say, actually, I want it sent out, or I want to pick it up, or I want to sell it back, there is no refund on the remaining storage period. Now, the reason we do that, and I know it sounds incredibly unfair, but the reason we do that is that we have to pay for 12 months of insurance on your product. And the insurance company doesn't say, oh, well, look, Billy Bloggs has come in and bought and picked up his 1 ounce of gold, therefore we're going to refund you that insurance component for the remaining amount. They say, really sorry, but you paid for 12 months insurance. It is what it is. So us being the generous type, we pass that generosity onto you and say, it is what it is. We're really sorry. So understand, when you pay for your storage, you are paying for all the way up to and including the end of that period of time, which will be June 30th of that following financial year. Alrighty. Where have we got? If I want to done that one. Do you think in the event of a US dollar collapse, what would happen to the Forex markets? Chaos. Just as a very small sample, we saw, which metal was it? Was it zinc? It wasn't copper. Nickel. Thank you. It was the nickel price, or the nickel market, late last year, early this year, went into absolute meltdown because someone had actually said, well, actually, I don't want my COMEX contract in paper. I actually want it in physical. And I'm not even sure they actually took it in physical. I think that was just the rumour that went round. All hell broke loose to a point where the government actually had to intervene in the market and calm everyone down and stop the losses that were going through the roof and guarantee all sorts of things. If the US dollar collapsed, it will be that on steroids, because the nickel market is nothing compared to the USD Forex market. So, yeah, it would be pandemonium on a scale that you couldn't imagine. How would this affect the XAU AUD? It would cause a lot of volatility on it, but it would strengthen it massively. So the XAU AUD is gold price in Australian dollars. Has palladium gone up overnight? Oh, that one wasn't directed at me. Shipping is through the roof. If importing anything, check the shipping first. I cannot tell you how much our shipping is going up, and just to flag it early before I actually do the numbers, I can pretty much guarantee that sometime between now and the new year, our shipping is going to go up, because I know that our rates, like the rates to us, have increased. It must be getting close to 50% now. We've absorbed that cost for quite a while, but we're going to have to pass that on in the not too distant future. Somebody's saying I'm not talking into the mic. That's quite possible. I'm actually talking across the front of it. Oh boy, my computer's just reset and skipped to the bottom, so there's been a number there. Where are we? 3 months of storage. If not going on that one, Goat, that's all yours. Do you notify customers when their orders are on the move? We certainly do, GR. So once your parcel is packed, you should be issued, as soon as we get the tracking number, we should issue you with the tracking number so you can actually track where it's up to. And if there's enough interest on it, we're actually trying to, I'm talking out of school here because we haven't set this, I haven't worked out logistically how to do it properly yet. We've only just started to talk about it over the water cooler at work. We're looking at fitting GPS trackers to the parcels as they go out. The GPS trackers they're not incredibly expensive. Don't blow this out of proportion, but they're not overly cheap. So we're trying to work out a way of actually putting them in the parcel in a return envelope, like a postage page envelope. So we could actually say, okay, well, your freight is X amount and we'll refund you Y amount once we get your GPS tracker back in the post. So that way, when you get your parcel, you rip it open, just chuck the GPS tracker envelope in your post box, and when we get it back, we can refund the money for the GPS tracker. And that way, people, we can know a bit more accurately where your specific parcel is on any day. So it's something we're playing around with if that tickles anyone's fancy on that one. Not going near that one, mate. A lot more banks are asking what you want the money for, and if you, when you get a cash withdrawal. I don't know if my screen's just frozen, but it could be my internet. So if people's screens are frozen, let me know. Although I'm not sure how you'd let us know. I'm getting indications that it seems to be good in the background here, so it must be just my computer. A lot more banks are asking what you want the money for. Absolutely they are, and it's doing my head in. And in fact, we're getting more and more banks actually refusing to transfer funds to bullion dealers. Work that one out. So people will go in, they'll take a Bullion Now legitimate invoice into the bank, they'll hand it over, and the bank will say, ooh, you sure you want to do this? You really sure you want? Oh, no, we think you're being ripped off. No, look, we know it's your money, but we think you're being ripped off. We're not going to transfer the funds. And not that long ago, it was a couple of months ago, but not that long ago, I had a lady back in the shop here in tears because the bank refused to transfer the funds out of her bank account and allow her to buy the bullion. It's it's going to be interesting, or it's getting interesting. What else we got here? Is there somewhere on the user portal that tells us what has not been collected? I actually don't know. I'm going to have to seek further clarification on that. Andy Grace, the storage fee is way cheaper than home insurance. Absolutely it is. With your long-term insurance, if something bad happens, do we get the second-hand market value of the stored items or the buy price or replace like for like? No, this is where it becomes a little bit more interesting. The insurance, it's hard to say. The insurance company, even though they deal with bullion, it's really, I'm going to sidestep your question slightly. We had to educate the insurance company on how they refunded the insurance, and Mark was those that are regulars in the shop may know Mark. Mark was a big one in this, where we had to argue out at what point are they going to value your product. So, for example, let's say, heaven forbid, something happens today. Now, spot price is, let's say it's $3,000. By the time they go through all the insurance claims, and we all know insurance doesn't pay out the millisecond that the incident occurs, it takes them quite a while. So let's say it takes 3 months for them to actually pay you out for it. Do they pay out $3,000 as to when the incident occurred, or if spot price has gone up $500 and it's now worth $3,500, should they be paying out that $3,500 instead of the $3,000? Now, we got them to agree to pay out the current spot price at when they were going to pay it out, or as close to as practical. And like I said, Mark, for those that will know him, was a big driver behind that. They are going to base it on the spot price that they pay it out. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that they're going to pay out for coins, particularly. Absolutely, they'll pay out for coins. I don't know how much premium they're going to pay out. I'd actually have to go back to them because now it becomes, particularly with some of the coins that turn into collector's coins, it now becomes a little bit hairy because now you've actually got to get a hard market valuation on them. So that's probably something. My insurance is actually up for renewal right now. So that should be something that I should take back to them and actually discuss and see where they're going to go with that one. Ruben is not behind the camera today. Ruben is away. We don't pay taxes on gold or silver, investment gold or silver in Australia either, Craven. Flying solo today. Internet speed has slowed down to 0. Okay, not at our end by the sounds of it. I thought it had for a minute. Drew Murray, we're talking about the storage here. Does it roll over, i.e. buy something else and it resets to 3 months in storage? No. Drew, we used to do this, particularly during COVID. We just said, look, you keep ticking it over and keep buying every so often and we'll keep renewing it. We've had to stop that because people were buying, they'd buy $500,000 worth of gold. They'd leave it in storage with us. That's fine for 3 months. We have no problem with that. We're quite open about it. And then about every 3 months or so, they'd buy one silver kangaroo or something like that. And it just wasn't covering the insurance was starting to kill us. So we had to draw a line under it and say, no, it's 3 months. So at the point where that item that you've purchased hits the 3 months, even if you've got other stuff in the system, we will start charging the storage fee on that item. We won't charge it on the others though, not until they hit 3 months. And then as they hit 3 months, you'll find you'll get a bill for those ones as well. But no, we don't do that rollover anymore like we used to. We had to stop that one. If the bank teller asks me what my 5K withdrawal is for, yeah, again, Richard, not going down that road. You can look at the end of the day, so long as you're not doing anything illegal, it doesn't really matter what you tell them. It's up to you. I'm not a fan of anyone knowing what I do with my money. It's my money. But it's your call what you tell them. Yeah. Are you getting gold pamps pamp cast bars again? We do get them in semi-frequently. I don't think we've got any on order at the moment, but I'm not against getting them in. If there's the requests there, we'll certainly chase them up again. The trouble is there's so many brands out there these days, particularly in the overseas market. So, it costs quite a bit to bring them in because your money's out there for quite a long time and the margins on them are quite small. So we tend to get the basics in, and then we get clumps in every so often when people start saying, "Oh, I'd really like to see some more pamps." Okay, well we'll take a delivery of pamps. Pamps have been quite expensive for quite a while, but I did notice their premiums are starting to come down a bit. Metal Inquisitor, here we go. Any news about Bullion Now's allocation of the 24 Perth Mint Lunar Dragons? We should get the allocation notice any moment now. They told us it would be in sometime this week. I'm just looking right this second. We haven't been notified just yet, but I'm expecting it any moment now. We should get the allocation in. What do we got here? Yeah, I'm not touching that one. It's not that I'm dodging questions. I have no problem answering pretty much any question that you ask. It's when people are starting to wander outside the lines, colour outside the lines a little bit with some of the things that they're telling banks and that. I'm not going down that path because I could get smacked for it. Can I send my my PMs back with the tracker? Can't see why not. We haven't got... honestly, it's a thought bubble that's floated through and we haven't latched onto it yet. So I don't know what the requirements or things will be around it. So stand by for further information. But I actually think it's a great idea. But let's see how it works practically. With how much a bar of gold weighs, do you get a laugh watching movies of people carrying multiple bags of gold? Yeah, look, one of my favourite movies of all time is The Italian Job, and it still makes me laugh every time I see them filling up those 3 minis full of gold and then actually calculating if those bars were actually real bars, because they are very large bars for what they are and the way they're chucking them around. Every time it just cracks me up. Still a good movie though. What else? Earlier this year, the bank. Look, Michael Carroll. I don't know if I can read it all because I haven't read it all yet. Earlier this year, the bank refused to consider my gold as an investment. According to them, there is no way they can prove you have it, whereas you can prove you have shares. It's an unusual bank that will. I actually don't know of any, but it would be an unusual bank that would consider your gold for any form of backing if you were to take out a loan. We are actively trying to change that. We're actively trying to work out a way that people can use their gold as security to get out mortgages and things like that. We haven't come up with a fair solution yet. There are places where you can do it and they will charge you, 5% per month, which is, that's great if you want a short-term loan, but, to take out a mortgage at 5% per month, 60% per annum, it'll kill you. So, we're trying to, we keep making inquiries with people to try and see, or with banks and financial institutions and people we know in the industry to try and say, hey, would you consider? We haven't been successful yet, but we will keep trying. I'm sorry, my computer just skipped all the way down the bottom again. Where are we here? It's good to see. Shane Lampard here. Bullion Now is my bank. I think a lot of people treat Bullion Now as a bank. A lot of people, and look, again, please do not take this as financial advice or anything along those sort of lines. But when you go, from my experience going to a bank, you walk into a bank, you deposit cash, you walk out with either a piece of paper that's been printed on that says, you've deposited X amount of cash, or going back to the old days. And I always go back to when I was a kid. I remember my mother taking me to the bank because I'd scratched together $20 and I opened my first bank account at a place called Hotham Building Society. Here you go, I'm going back into the dark ages. And you got that little pocketbook and it had printed out how much I had on there. And I remember thinking at the time, because I had gold at the time, I remember thinking, all they've given me is a piece of paper with a print on it. And I just gave them $20 of my hard-earned money. I've got gold at home and I control that. And I would have been all of about 7 or 8 at that point. And I still remember that feeling of, I've been ripped off. And I still get that feeling to this day. And I was only in the bank a couple of days ago and I deposited a sum of cash and they gave me this printout. And I keep thinking, I feel ripped off. Whereas when you treat somewhere like a bullion dealer as your bank, you come in, you buy a lump of gold or silver or platinum, and you walk out with it and it's in your hand and you go, well, I've deposited my cash there and I've got something for it. I know that I can take this anywhere and I can change it over. I can even change countries with it. I can't lose it. And you'll see very soon, we did a video the other day, Ruben and I, where we actually put some safes into a bonfire and melted some precious metals. So stay tuned for that one. But you can see that you don't destroy what you've got. So you can take it back at any time and you don't even have to go back to the same bank that you purchased it from, that you deposited your cash with. You can go to another bank entirely and in another country and withdraw your funds from that one. So a lot of people treat Bullion Now as a bank. And I'm all for it. Even if Bullion Now didn't exist, I'd be still all for it because I still go back to when I was 7 or 8 and I just felt ripped off with that $20 in my pocketbook. I agree, Scott. It shouldn't matter. It's your money. I couldn't agree more with that. Chris H., is there any obligation to tell the banks what you're going to do with the money when you withdraw it? No, you are actually under no obligation. You can tell them to get stuffed. What you have to understand, though, is that they are going to react accordingly to you when you say, I'm not telling you. Because they have obligations in the background, both as a company and as a reporting entity, that they will have to do with that information. So, again, this is not banking advice, but it's it's good. You catch more. It's better to keep them onside than offside. So they're only doing their job. Don't get them offside is my suggestion. Smithy's Bullion ever coming back on the website? I actually have no clue. We should make contact with Smithy and see if we can tee some up. What else have we got here? Had to laugh. A mate asked me who I bank with, and I told him Bullion Now. Love it. Yeah, Andy Grace, you're spot on. When it's in the bank, it's not your money. It's actually the bank's money. You only have a claim on it. That's exactly right. You are now a creditor to the bank. So you have a claim on it. If they go bankrupt, you join the queue of all the other creditors saying, actually, they owe me money. You can't go in there and say that is my money because it's not. You've voluntarily given it to the bank. You just have a claim against it. That's all. Do you have any idea of the percentage of metals that the Perth Mint imports and from where? Look, I'm not a Perth Mint employee. Every so often I get called a Perth Mint shill, which cracks me up no end, but which we're definitely not. And if you've seen any of our videos, you'd know that we're not. We call them out where we need to. But I couldn't tell you what they import, but they must import a lot. You look at the amount of gold and silver and that they refine and sell around the world. They absolutely must be bringing in a lot, both from intrastate, and also internationally. There'd be a heck of a lot coming in from all over the place. The Lunar Dragon is not the one with the koi fish on it. I can't say any more than that. Hope you're good. It's been ages since I've been able to join the live stream. What's new in the gold and silver? All sorts of things, Anthony. All sorts of things. Drew Murray, powder dry, waiting for those 10-ounce gold lunars. Can't wait. You're going to be waiting a while. They're not releasing the 10-ounce gold lunar for several months before you'll actually see those in stock. And I believe the only ones that are going to be available on launch day in gold is the 1/10, the quarter, and the 1 ounce. The others, they're not guaranteeing me. We know the 1/20th won't be. They haven't told me officially the half ounce isn't going to be, but I'm reading between the lines of emails that are going back and forward. It doesn't look like the half ounce and the 2 ounce will be, and the 10 ounce certainly won't be. 6th of November, that's right, Lunar 3 Dragon. I hate it when my computer resets all the way down to the bottom. I lose track of where I'm up to. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll back. What is the best, most convenient way to find out my unallocated balance? Greg, just flick us through an email, sales@bullionnow.com.au, and the boys, anyone actually, Sylvia can do it, anyone can do it. They'll flick you back a PDF that's got your unallocated balance on it pretty much fairly quickly. You can also phone in. We can always tell you over the phone. So 1300 84 84 10. You can phone in and say, look, just want to check what my unallocated balance is. Guys can look you up, push a button, and it tells you straight away what the unallocated balance is. I hope to get it on the web, but it's one of those things that's important, but certainly not near the top of the list yet. We do have, actually, Laurie, I don't know how you know that. Maybe it's on the website. I don't know. But we do have over 100 kilos of buyback silver in at the moment. A Caulfield Cup weekend special. That's a fantastic idea. We should do something for, because I reckon we should do the Melbourne Cup. That gives us a little bit of time to work something out. Yeah, well, we'll look at something. So who got the Brumbies? I don't actually know who got the Brumbies in the end. Couldn't tell you on that one. Kien, Basel 3 says gold is a tier 1 asset. That's exactly right. And it cracks me up that the banks won't take that on board anymore or at all. And it's really interesting, the history behind that, with basically the countries led particularly by China, but a lot of the countries, Japan as well, saying, actually, we don't like the way the US economy is turning. We've got all these assets tied up and backed by the US dollar. We need an alternative. And enough pressure was applied so that gold became a tier 1 asset, which was really good to see. Where are we here? I'm not getting into any other companies on this. Was there specific? I haven't read this whole question, but it made me laugh. Mr. Variable, hoping not too personal, but was there a specific moment that made becoming a bullion dealer easier? Curious how one goes from pilot to dealing in precious metals. Pure stupidity. There is no other explanation for it. A bullion dealer has never been easy, and it always makes me laugh, the people who launch into being bullion dealers and then, after 12 months, 18 months, they fairly quickly fade away. Everything works against you. The government works against you. The banks work against you. The spot price works against you. The foreign exchange works against you. The couriers work against you. It really is a tough gig. And people will have seen the video we shot a week or so ago, where I talked about the premium that bullion dealers actually make on precious metals. And like I said at the time, we're a standard, and I'm talking gross profits here, I'm not talking net. So gross is basically your buy price compared to your sell price. So there's no expenses taken into account of, wages or insurance or, freight, or might be some freight taken into that, lighting or any of those things. So this is just your gross profit. We get a standard gross profit for us, or gross margin, is about 1%. Now, I don't know of any other real industry that works on 1%, possibly supermarkets. That would be about it. And I think the statement I made was, it's all high fives around the office if we actually have a product that makes 3%. So we work on incredibly tight margins. It takes very, very little for you to blow that 1% margin straight out the window. If we hadn't have hedged Friday night, gold jumped 112, I think it was, dollars an ounce in Australian dollars over the Friday night to Saturday. If we hadn't hedged properly over Friday night, that pure movement overnight would have cost BN with how much we were, let me get this right, how much we were short on Friday. If we hadn't placed that order, it would have cost us just over $25,000 purely on a spot price movement. That would have obliterated any potential profits for most of that week. Purely like gross profits, I'm talking, not net profits, purely on the fact that we hadn't hedged. Bullion dealing is a hard gig, one of the hardest gigs out there. There's a bit of an argument going on about putting your money in the bank compared to putting it into precious metals, and saying precious metals can drop in price. And absolutely they can. You need to go into buying bullion with the understanding that if it's a comparison between depositing my cash in the bank and buying a bullion bar, if you're only going to own it for 24, 48 hours, a week, 2 weeks, assuming a bank doesn't collapse or anything along those sort of things, those lines happen, you are going to incur more charges buying physical gold than you are depositing the money in the bank account. There is no doubt about that, okay? But what you have got to say is, actually, I'm holding this money for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years, for 10 years. And if you're going to do that, holding it in the bank is going to be far more expensive, because you have bank charges and you have a guaranteed loss there called inflation. And we deal with this time and time again. Now, if you go back 12 months ago, if you go back 5 years ago, if you go back 10 years ago, if you go back 50 years ago, any of those time periods, if you'd bought gold in Australian dollar at the peak of the market for that year, at the very, 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 very peak of that market for that year, so you'd picked the worst day of the year to buy it, the absolute top of the market, you would still be ahead today, because we are currently at an all-time high. If you deposited your bank at any time over the last 12 months through to the last 50 years, you would be in a worse position than you would be if you'd bought gold. And we can do the charts on it. This is talking in Australian dollar terms. In US dollar terms, it hasn't hit its peak, or it hasn't gone to an all-time high yet. So there would be short periods of time where you would have been better off potentially and I'm not guaranteeing this because I haven't run the numbers, but potentially in the bank. But as a rule, if you're looking for a really quick changeover, I had this conversation with someone on the phone today. If you're looking to hold your money in the bank for a week, the chances are, guys, the chances of bullion going down in the next week are probably pretty good, in all honesty. The chances of the bank collapsing in the next week are probably pretty slim, in all honesty. I certainly hope that's the case. So you're probably better off holding it in the bank or something equivalent to that, even cash if you're only going to hold it for a week. If you're holding it for that longer term, though, that's where you start looking at preservation of wealth, and I need to now hold it in bullion. Where are we here? Matthew, we've talked about why gold is at an all-time high right back at the start. So maybe kick back to the start of the stream. Oh, we've kicked over an hour. No wonder I'm getting a bit hoarse. This is where I need the others so I can bounce off them and take a drink every so often. I'm just going to step to the side for a second. Recommended safe for a beginner. Great question, Sid. Love this question. My suggestion is don't get a safe. And that's just shocked everyone. And as you'll see from the bonfire that that Ruben and I did when we released that one, not all safes are created equal. So, and it also depends on why you've got the safe. So there's lots of things at play here. If you're just looking for a safe to stop the accidental burglar, then you can get any old safe. It really doesn't matter because, it's just an opportunistic thing. So if it's locked away, they're going to go, it's too hard, I'll move on and go elsewhere. If you're looking for something to be fireproof, that's a different story. And stay tuned for that video and you'll see what happened with our fireproof safe. If you're looking at high-end safes, there are some really good brands out there, your Chubbs of the world, things like that. But my suggestion is you go to one of the high-end safe dealers. Yes, it's going to cost you a few $1,000s, but if you're storing $500,000 worth of gold or silver, it's worth spending a couple of grand on getting, or a few grand, on getting a good safe and getting good advice on where to position that safe. They'll deliver it for you, all those sorts of things. Deal with one of the high-end dealers if you want a serious safe. Going back to my original statement of don't get a safe, particularly if you're a beginner. The problems with safes is that you have a safe for a reason. And if I know that you've got that safe, not me as Michael the bullion dealer, me as the mug down the street that's having nasty thoughts, I know that you've bought a safe because you want to store something precious in there. I know that I can't crack the safe. I'm just an average everyday thug. I can't crack the safe, but I do know that you know how to get into the safe. So I am going to either threaten you or your family to get you to open that safe so I can remove the products from it. So by having a safe, in some ways you're increasing your risk. So think very, very carefully before you get a safe. And if you do get a safe, please, 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 the same as anything to do with precious metals, do not tell anyone. Your best form of security is silence. Don't tell anyone. Don't even tell, when people say, I'm going to, quite often I stop people and say, don't tell me where you're going to store it. I don't want to know, because your best form of security is to not tell anyone. Obviously, you need to tell one person in case you get hit by the proverbial bus, but that's it. You do not tell anyone else. That's my thoughts on a safe. Be very, very careful before you get one. Alrighty. Yes, John Smith, that exactly explains the grey hairs on my head. I'm only 21. You too can look like this. Become a bullion dealer. So being a pilot wasn't exciting enough. We used to say about flying, it's 99 hours of sheer boredom followed by 1 hour of sheer terror. And that was pretty accurate. I was going back, right back in my flying history. I was an aerobatics instructor. So I used to teach people to turn aeroplanes upside down. And that honestly was 99 hours of sheer boredom followed by 1 hour of sheer terror, because you had to give people time to do the maneuver, get it wrong, recognise they've got it wrong, attempt to correct it, recognise that it's getting pear-shaped and they haven't corrected it correctly, and then you could step in and actually take over from them. By this time, you could lose anywhere between 50 feet and a couple of thousand feet. And I tell you what, that deck is very hard when it comes rushing up in your windscreen. I can tell you from experience, from several close calls. Oh dear, but it was a good time. What do we got here? Here we go. Someone else. Wife plastic card was hacked. Fraud transactions. ANZ picked it up and blocked her card. She found out about it when her card stopped working. ANZ should be replacing lost funds. Yeah, look, good on them. It's good that they do that. I actually, as some of you will know, I was away in the UK 2 or 3 weeks ago, and one of my cards got skimmed in the UK. And to Amex's credit, and full credit to them, they were on the phone to me almost immediately that the first transaction was placed, and they confirmed it with me and declined the transaction, thankfully. The downside of it was they stopped my card working straight away, which was a bit of a pain. But again, to their credit, and I've got to say, Amex is really, really good on these lines. They made it so the chip in the card actually still worked, so I could still buy fuel, which is what I was doing when they phoned me. I could still buy fuel and all that sort of stuff, but I couldn't do over the web or any of those remote transactions. So they were incredibly good, and they got a replacement card to me super quick. So full marks to Amex for that one. So, that's the good side of the banks and the payment functions. What else we got here? I think we're going to have to start wrapping up. We've been going an hour. Get a shoebox. Look, Warren, I know you're saying that slightly in jest, but there is nothing like burying your gold under the carrot patch, I can tell you. It makes your carrots look more golden, and it's a real security thing. So this is not gardening advice. Yeah. Alarms, well, as someone that has alarm systems, they're not always what they're cracked up to be. Bought mine from eBay from China. Yeah, we had, it was a terrible look, and we never should have got it, but we actually had one of those El Cheapo safes here, and I can't even remember why we had it here. We had it here for some reason, demonstrating, or someone had given it to us, or for some reason, and it was a terrible image. So eventually, I hid it out the back. Oh no, it was a different one that we did this to, but yeah, I accidentally dropped it on the floor, and it split straight open. The door popped open, everything spilled out from inside it, and I thought, great safe this is. So yeah, honestly, a shoebox would be just as safe. Sorry, just chuckling at some of the ones. VB Man 005. That must be a Peter Brock reference, I'd suggest. I know you have issues with couriers, but why does it take 1 to 2 days to leave Bullion Now to Ballarat, 5 to 6 days to go another hour? Okay, all right. I think I understand the question. All right, so it takes 1 to 2 days to leave Bullion Now. The reason being, you place the order today. Right, so let's say it's 3 o'clock now, 3:30. You place an order on our website. You pay for it instantaneously. Fantastic. This is a bad example because today's Friday. Let's say today's Monday. You paid for it. You bought it at 3:30. Paid for it immediately. Okay. The bank can take up to 24 hours to transfer to our bank account. So that means that we may not receive the money till Tuesday afternoon. Now we do our bank runs in the morning, so we won't actually see that money go through our system, our banking system or our back end system until Wednesday morning when the bank uploads into our system. Because they only upload to our system once a day. So now we can mark it as payment received. We can now process your order. So Ads will print it all out. He'll run around. He'll get it all picked. That will then go from our picking area through to shipment. They will package it. It'll probably take overnight to get packaged by the time it goes through the whole queue of boxes that are there. So it will be shipped out on Thursday. So even though you've placed, this is probably the worst case scenario that I'm playing out here, But you place the order on Monday, and as far as you're concerned, it was paid for instantaneously. We don't actually get it. We don't get the money till Wednesday in a lot of cases into our system, and we don't actually ship it out until the Thursday. Now, it should be to Ballarat, I would have assumed we pay for express, super expensive overnight freight to get it to you that's tracked the whole way and signature on delivery. It should have got to you Friday morning. That should have been the worst case scenario. I don't know why it's taking, if I'm reading you right, you're saying it's taking 5 to 6 days after that. It absolutely should not be, and I need to take that up with Toll. So if I'm reading that correctly and it's taking 5 days after you receive the tracking number to get to Ballarat, send us an email, give me the details, and I'll chase that further with Toll, because it absolutely should not have taken that long. It should be overnight to Ballarat. Even anywhere in the Ballarat region, it should get there overnight. The only time it takes a little bit longer is where they do, I know coming down into Gippsland, it goes to a central depot, I believe in Morwell. It's either Morwell or Warrigal, I can never remember which one it is. And then when it's going out into the hills from there, they only do a run into the hills twice a week. So if it misses it, that can actually delay going out. So maybe if you're quite a ways out of Ballarat, it may be that the courier, while it gets to Ballarat or overnight, you may find that they only do a run out to your area if you're quite a way out, every twice a week sort of thing. That may be the extension. But again, if you send us through the invoice number to our email, sales@bullionnow.com.au, I will actually chase it up further. Where are we here? Any unboxings coming up there? Absolutely. There was a delivery turned up just before I came onto live stream here, and it will tickle the fancy of. I'm trying not to give too much away. It may be a coin. It starts with T. The thing on it starts with T and ends in rump. If that gives you any idea, I can't give you any more information. So that should be coming out next week. I know a pilot that stalled the plane, hit the deck, and popped an eyeball out onto his cheek. That doesn't sound very pleasant at all. Believe it or not, no, I'm not. I won't turn this into an aviation half hour. A lot of people do the poly pipe vertically with your bullion down the bottom end. The white PVC plumber pipes with the caps on. I know a lot of people that actually put their precious metals into those, screw the caps on both ends so it's watertight, and they bury those in the ground. A number of people I know do that. It's a great idea. People keep them in tea caddies and medicine cabinets and, mate, as many things as you can think of where people hide them. I always go back to this beautiful couple that we've got that she crochets different things to hide their precious metals under. So they've got these fantastic crochet displays all around their house, and people don't realise that it's actually precious metals hiding underneath all of them, hiding in plain sight. One thing I learned from my parents running business is security only works for small crooks. Those that take their time to plan will still get through or close enough. Funnily enough, I was talking about this with people this morning. I talked to a security specialist we're always talking to people about security and how we can increase the security in our storage facilities. And we had a conversation with a super security specialist, does most of Australia's prisons and all those sorts of things. And they said at the end of the day, you cannot stop people getting in. You can slow them down. The best thing that you can do, though, is get notified as soon as someone is attempting it. And that way you can actually get someone there to deal with it. So whether that be security or police or whatever you're looking for. But if someone is determined enough, they will eventually get through whatever security you've put in place. Again, not trying to get political, and I'm sounding a bit crass here and I don't mean it, but, Israel thought they had a fairly secure wall around there, and, they threw enough explosives at it and through they got and on the way they went. So it doesn't matter how good a security you've got, enough planning and enough explosives and someone will get through it. Oh, alrighty. What else are we there? I can't answer this one. Why do ladies that work in the offices say their name is Sylvia when it's obvious that that's not their name? We actually do have a Sylvia that works for us. A lot of people have met Sylvia. She does exist. I know. I'd never clicked when we employed Sylvia that her name had silver in it. It wasn't until a customer pointed that out to me one day. But absolutely, Sylvia works for us. Sylvia is on the phones. The three main people on our phones are Matt. No, they're not. Andrew, Con, and Sylvia are the main three on our phones. So if you're phoning through, that's who you're going to get, one of those three, as a rule. Sometimes the rest of us chip in, but they're the main ones there. Alrighty. I'm going to start winding this up, mainly because I'm losing my voice. So thank you very, very much for tuning in. We almost cracked the 200, I think, and we've got 70 likes. I was hoping to get over 100 so I could give Matt a hard time and telling him we got 100 without him here, but 70's good enough, close enough. If we can squeeze a few more, that'd be even better. Thank you for tolerating just putting up with me on the live stream. I hope you enjoyed it. It was something different. I know it can get a bit bland with just one voice talking at you all the time, but sometimes it's good to be able to pitch those questions at a bullion dealer and just have him hammer through a number of them as quickly as he can. So hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us wow, the likes jumped up to 98 that quickly. Thank you very much for that. Another 2 and I'll be able to smile at Matt. Oh, yeah, there we go. We've cracked the 100. Thanks for that. So, yeah, hopefully you got something out of this. The whole team is back again next Friday, as far as I'm aware, although I may be tuning in remotely because it is my kids' school's fate, and I've been committed to do something there inadvertently. It wasn't me. I knew I was busy on the Friday, but somebody else dobbed me in. So I'm looking at doing a remote streaming. So that could be fun. You could be viewing a high school's fate while we're doing the live stream. So all good fun. Hopefully Matt and Ruben are having a great time while they're away. Again, if you're in Sydney and you can drop into the lower town hall, drop in, say good day to Matt, and experience the Anders show. It's absolutely well worth doing. We will be back same bat time, same bat channel next week on the Friday for all the good things. Thank you very, very much for tuning in, and we'll see you again very, very soon.